Okay, great. All right. I would like to call to order the August 8th, 2022 regular board meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'd like to welcome everyone joining us in person this evening and those who are viewing remotely. The board held an executive session on July 18th regarding personnel, legal, and real estate. Board members, with an agenda before you, are there any changes? Just checking here. All right, seeing none. Mr. Johnson will now review some housekeeping items.
Thank you, Amy. For your audience this evening, 30 minutes will be provided at the beginning of the meeting for public comment for items related to the board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. If additional time is necessary, the board may consider reopening for public comment after board business is completed or during the next meeting. Each individual will be limited to comments of up to 3 minutes as time permits, or for items related to the board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. For action items, public comment will be held just prior to the voting on that item as required by school code. This approach also allows for comments to be informed by the presentation and board's discussions of the respective item. Since this is a public meeting, we will not permit remarks regarding individual students. If you'd like to share something with our board about individual students, please email them. During the meeting, the IT help desk is available. If those viewing remotely encounter technical difficulties, you may email itsupport@scasd.org or call 814-231-7743.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'd like to now ask the board secretary for a roll call.
Dr. Anderson.
Here.
Dr. Vader.
Here.
Dr. Buck.
Here.
Dr. Prevacore.
Here.
Dr. Duffy.
Here.
Ms. Huff. Here. Ms. Zidney.
Here. Thank you. So tonight we have under communications, first we have a retirement recognition. Marie Tenersis Hayes is retiring after 27 and a half years in the district. Maria began her SCASD career in 1994 as an elementary school teacher at Radio Park. She stayed at Radio Park until 2001 when she moved to Coral Street Elementary, where she remained until recently retiring. At Coral Street, she was a third grade teacher. Principal Kelly Mark recognized Maria for her work, saying, "As a third grade teacher, Ms. Hayes created an engaging and fun learning environment for her chickadees," which was a term of endearment she used when interacting with her students. Ms. Hayes had a generous spirit, oftentimes reaching out to families and colleagues when they were ill or in need of support. In addition, she was a frequent donor to our school libraries, where her teaching legacy will live on as future students and teachers read her books. We hope Maria enjoys her retirement and she'll have more time to spend with her family both here and in Ecuador, as well as with her adorable dogs. The board thanks Maria for her service and wishes her the best in retirement. I'd like now to call on Mr. Johnson for superintendent's update.
Thank you. At this time, I do not have an update.
Oh, okay. We have time for a legislative update. I know Ms. Huff is remote tonight. Jackie, do you have anything you would like to pass along?
As is tradition, the legislative session or the legislative body has been out of session after passing the budget. So I really don't have anything to report. There has been a statewide effort to work on pushing for charter reform, since that didn't happen as part of the budget package. But that's really all that's going on right now.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. Center Region Council of Governments Liaison, Peter, do you have anything to add from COG?
I do not.
Okay, so that takes care of updates. At this time, we have public comment. Each individual will be allotted up to 3 minutes as time permits for items related to board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. For action items, public comment will be held just prior to voting on that item as required by school code. If additional time is necessary, the board may consider reopening public comment after board business is completed or during the next meeting. As a reminder, public comment is a chance for community members to share their thoughts with the board. It is not a time for the board to answer questions or engage in conversations. You can always email the board at allboard@scasd.org. Is there anyone here in public that would like, or here in person that would like to make a public comment? Okay, let me just check on our remote participants. Is anyone who's in attendance remotely here to make a public comment? Please raise your hand. All right, I see none. So I think we are finished with that for public comment. Up next, we have routine approvals. For us, we have a motion. Do we have a motion to approve the routine approval listing as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this item? Ms. Zidney?
Yeah, I did have a couple of questions. Thank you. The Her Clinic and
Laurel,
Jean-
can you pull your mic a little
Oh,
closer?
I'm
I think?
sorry,
No,
yes.
it's okay. I just wanted to make sure you were heard.
Is this on?
Yeah, it's on.
Thank you to Jean for getting back to me because I had questions about it. I was confused and she got back to me very, very quickly. So this contract is just for us to pay for a supervisor of interns and doesn't, the last one, the one that we're renewing, actually also called for 6 interns. And that's what I'm trying to understand, where they have, whether we'll have a separate contract for those interns.
Jean's on.
Yeah.
So the contract that you have is to pay for a teaching assistant to support the interns that we're getting from the Her Clinic.
And will we also be getting a contract for those clinics? Because last year, the two things were in the same contract.
Well, we added a grad assistant to it. So we have the Penn State Her Clinic that pays for the Katie Castor's position, which originally was supposed to be
Right.
GA, but they gave us an actual faculty for that. Katie assumed that role last year. And then we had submitted a contract for her in that position. And then we now are asking for a GA to support her in that role.
Jean, I think the question might be, did we have a separate agreement about having the interns? Is that what your
For
question is?
this year, because last year, the
Right.
GA or the faculty supporter and the
It was
interns were
together.
both on the same contract.
Right. Did we already approve to have the interns?
Okay, so you're talking about having her interns actually here to have with
Yeah,
the.
I think that's what Laurel's asking, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I believe that we did one intern contract for Penn State and all of that was encompassing.
Yeah.
No, I would have to look into that because I honestly am not sure. I now understand what you're saying, Laura. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'll come back later if I'm just confused. It seems
Sure.
like we keep hiring graduate assistants. Because I understood the reason for hiring Katie. She was
Right, because she's
supervising the 2 people when it was going to be 14,000. There was that one.
Mm-hmm.
But this sounds like, and now what I think I heard you say.
They're not interns. She's supervising our SCASD hired clinicians for their licensure. So that's a completely separate thing. And she's doing that because of her licensure that she has. So Surya Chatters, who's assuming more of the director of diversity role, is not doing that role anymore in supporting our mental health clinicians towards their licensure. So Katie's going to assume that role. They have to have a LPC do that.
Right, and that's the limit, right, Jean? Because after this year, they'll now be fully accredited and they'll be able to operate independently.
Correct.
Yeah.
After this year, 2 of them will be, and then
Okay.
one will have 1 more year. Yeah, so there's a total of 3. 1 will have their licensure hopefully by the end of September or during October. 1 will have it towards the end of the year, and then we'll need another year because it's 3,000 hours, so it's usually a 2-year process.
Gotcha.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure, Laurel, you could follow up a little more about the actual agreement regarding the interns, and maybe, Jean, you could double check whether we've already cleared that or not.
Yeah,
Were there any?
Yeah, I think this is what I've been confused about.
There's been several different
Yeah.
roles, yeah.
So
Do you have
I'll just-
anything else from routine approvals?
Yes, I want to ask about something that was on the district bills, which is E. And there's a $1,000 payment to our former development contractor there, and I was wondering what that's for.
My understanding that's to complete an agreement with the former contract.
So that's what I was wondering, because, and just to be very clear, Mr. Olivet had filed a lawsuit against the district asking for us to pay him a bonus for a part of his contract that had a bonus clause, and that, as he said, he did not meet the performance statement, but he said that was a pandemic year thing, and so he asked that we provide the $4,000. And when we said that, you know, as he said, he didn't meet the performance goals, then he filed suit for that amount of money. And my understanding is that about a month ago, the administration pointed out that it might actually cost us more to settle this, to actually pursue it than to settle it, and therefore suggested we might be able to just get it to go away for $1,000. And certainly fiscally, I understand why people would want to do that, so I have no problem with that. It's just that for myself, I did not think that was the way to go. And so that's what I wanted to double check, that is materially correct.
I think what you said, Laurel, is generally accurate. I would word things slightly differently.
Thank you.
There was a contract with an individual to provide services to the district. It had, I believe, 3 bonus components to it. He met objectively 2 of those bonus criteria, and he was paid the stated bonus amounts for those. The 3rd bonus criteria, we believe objectively, he did not meet, and that would have been for $4,000, and we refused to pay that. He commenced a civil action against us, had 3 different counts in it. There was some preliminary wrangling. We were able to get 1 count dismissed, and we were still early in the process. I was confident that we would ultimately prevail, but his argument, there are alternative legal theories that you pursue in addition to just a strict breach of contract claim. So under a breach of contract claim, we believe that their argument was incorrect and we would have ultimately prevailed, but there were some additional arguments that we think once all the facts were developed, we would have won as well. However, and as you noted, both Randy and I felt that you're never certain that you're going to win in litigation, and we certainly from that point forward would have spent considerably more than $1,000 to litigate the matter. We may ultimately have won and spent $2,000 or $3,000 in order to prove that point. We may ultimately have lost and spent $2,000 or $3,000 to lose that point and then pay the $4,000. So we thought we were right, but we thought it was a judicious use of taxpayer money to pay the $1,000 and be done with it.
Yeah, and I certainly, as I said, understand that. So just to, you mentioned the contract, and the reason I said that he'd said it was that in his email to us, he said that. And I did go back and check, because that bonus was, he was to raise at least 95% of the annual fundraising from 2 years beforehand. We decided that first pandemic year he'd made so much because people were very generous that we wouldn't hold him to that.
I don't think we have to hash out the contract at this point. I mean, I
Yeah,
think your
so
question was answered.
I just wanted to be clear about it. He in fact only raised 84%, not 95. So we're not talking about a percentage here. And in fact, he only 58% of the previous year. So just to be clear about that. And as I said, I do understand the argument in terms of the cost involved. So please understand that I get why.
Okay, so
people would take that.
question's answered. Did you have other questions on the routine approvals, Laurel?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Any other questions on routine approvals?
Can I ask one?
Yeah, absolutely, Deb.
Randy, I don't know if you have the answer to this, just to stop you before you walk all the way away. A quick question on the football equipment purchase. I'm not questioning whether we should purchase helmets and pads for our football players. I'm wondering if we do the same for other players in other sports. For example, lacrosse, also helmets and pads. Do we provide that for our students? If we don't know the answer to that tonight, that's fine, but it's something that I'd like to pursue and understand.
I don't know the answer.
That's fine.
We have had this conversation probably prior to your time on the board. And I've made a note, and as we go through our budget planning, I think that's an appropriate conversation
Great.
at that point in time. We have a uniform replacement cycle.
Yep.
But then there's also the various components of the individual equipment for players and participants. And my knowledge is increasing, but I can't answer that question right off the top of my head.
That's fine, but that's really great that we can look at it in the budget process. Thank you.
Great.
And I'm sorry, I did have one more thing.
Okay, Laurel?
Just very briefly, it's not you, I just wanted to ask that in the future, we are renewing Synergy, and if we could get an update on the status of its implementation, because originally we had said we'd have it fully implemented by this month or last month. Obviously, the pandemic came in, so just for the future, if we could get an update
Okay.
on that.
Who's on the ITCAC? Don't we have a tech CAC? I mean, not CAC, committee. Anyway, I'll refer that to one of the other groups.
I would
Thanks.
look at seeing if we can get a presentation for CCO.
Thank you.
Yeah, that works. Okay, so is there any public comment on routine approvals? No one present in person. Any attendees need to make a comment on public or on routine approvals, please? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy? Yes. Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes. All right, that's passed. Moving on to action items. Motion 6A is to approve an MOU with State College Area Education Association as shown in attachment 6A.
So moved.
Seconded?
That's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion on this item? All right. Is there any public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy? Yes. Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Okay, that's passed. Next up, we have a motion to approve an agreement with Kimber Hirschberger as seen in attachment 6B.
So moved?
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion from board members?
I do.
Sure, Carla?
Yeah, on the compensation on page 2, I don't know if it's 8,500 or 10,000 because both of them are listed.
Ah, good catch. I did not catch that.
On page,
One sec.
Number 4 on the compensation, page 2.
Oh, okay.
Ah, I can't get to that window. There we go.
The cover member lists 10,000.
10,000. And then in mine, it says 10.
It says 8,500.
I see it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The contract needs amended, it's $10,000. We apologize.
Thanks, Randy. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Anyone remotely? Okay, any public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Duffy? Yes. Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
That's passed. Next up, we have a motion to approve agreement with Michelle Prezelbilowski, as seen in attachment 6C.
So moved?
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion from board members? All right, any public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Okay, that item is passed. Moving on, we have a motion to approve Penn State University College of Education research proposal as seen in attachment 6D.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. This is an item we reviewed at CCL meeting. Are there any questions or discussion from board members?
I just want to just reflect on some of the things we talked about at CCL, Amy. We get our fair share of research requests in terms of the participation by students in the district and so on, and they're all good. I mean, there are a few that occasionally really get my attention in terms of their really being very interesting, a little more elegant in their design, a little more meaningful in terms of the outcome. The methodology reminded me a lot of the work that when I was working, I was involved with in terms of interviewing students in the real settings in the classroom where they were actually engaged in activities. It was just exciting to see this presented, and I'm glad that we have a chance to participate in this and provide support for it, assuming the board agrees to this proposal. I also resurrected an idea that we used to talk about all the time, which was to invite our sponsored researchers to come back and share with us the outcomes of their work. Usually, having been through that myself, when you're finished the dissertation, the last thing you want to do is put more effort and work into it. So I can appreciate why they don't come to us and suggest they would like to do that. But I would like to provide an open invitation to this, for us to be able to hear more about that. And Jonathan, if you could make arrangements for that when the time comes in a couple of years when the outcomes will be shared.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And the proposals that I've brought to you guys, I've already told both researchers that will be an expectation following, because especially with the focus on English language learners, I think it's extremely valuable information for us to use and actually build upon.
It's really exciting. Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
Laurel, did you have a comment you wanted to make? Okay.
No. I agree with Dan, though.
Oh, yep. Yeah, we routinely invite them to come back. We love to hear if they have the time to share their results. So.
And the will and the energy. At that point in their career.
Do we have any public on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Ms. Zidney.
Yes.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Yes.
Dr. Buck.
Yes.
Dr. Crevecoeur.
Yes.
Dr. Duffy.
Yes.
Ms. Huff. Yes.
Okay, that item is passed. Next, we have a motion to approve elimination of CTC Cisco program as seen in Memo 6E.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion from the board? Or Curtis, do you want to summarize it a little bit? Or Chris, here comes Chris. I know we all know what this is, but for the sake of the public, and this is maybe the first time they're seeing it, do you want to just give a brief explanation?
Sure. Thank you. So we've been trying to hire a Cisco teacher for over a year now. We've been unsuccessful in being able to secure someone. The amount that they can earn in private industry is it's hard to compete with. And they would also have to go back to school to earn their teaching credentials, which is another additional expense for them and time. So because of this, we have to ask for board vote to be able to remove Cisco from the CATS system as per PDE's regulation. However, we don't want to not offer really good computer courses in the future. So our hope is that we would be able to develop some courses that could be taught by either a technology education teacher or a business technology teacher, and bring those to a vote at a future meeting. But for now, there are 6 students in Cisco 1 and 2 who would not be able to earn their industry certification if we didn't offer the program. It is offered through CPI, and we would be able to help students with that as well if they still wanted to pursue that.
Great, thanks. That's a great summary. Are there any other questions from board members? Okay. Any public comment on this item? Oh, I think we might have someone in the attendees. 1 second. Logan Rose, did you want to make a comment? If you could. if you could just introduce yourself and where you live in the district, and you'll have 3 minutes to share your comments.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Logan Rose. I am a senior attending State High and a resident of Ferguson Township. I have taken Cisco 1 and 2, as well as A+ Essentials in IT Entrepreneurship. These classes have been an excellent way for me to gain knowledge in the field of technology, laying the foundation for me to hopefully earn a degree in IST. When I learned of the intention to eliminate these classes, I was upset, as these courses have shaped my path for learning and hopefully would continue to do so my senior year. This is also especially difficult when considering that the school year will be starting in 2 weeks, and I would be 1 credit short of the 6 needed for seniors should these classes be removed, and need to choose a new class with little time to decide. This past year, I chose to take IT Entrepreneurship for the first time. Not only did I learn about repairing the computer I use day to day for school, but I felt I was able to make a tangible impact on our school community 1 student at a time. And most importantly, I had fun with what I was doing. I was shocked to see that IT Entrepreneurship was on the list of courses to be removed. I couldn't imagine a year without a Cisco course in my schedule. In my experience with the course, as well as conversations with other students who have taken the class in the past years, the course did not have the traditional teaching style, and most times only required the occasional help of IT staff with us in the depot. On most days, I only spoke with the designated teacher in order to briefly discuss what was happening in the depot over the past few times, or to take attendance, or to make sure that my work log made it in for the week. After that check-in, I went straight down to the depot and began my work independently for the rest of class. So I asked that, if possible, consideration be made to allow those who are part of the IT Entrepreneurship course to continue the work they're doing in the depot, helping to repair Chromebooks and aid with any walk-in student issues this year, allowing myself and others to make a difference in our school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Logan. I know that that program of having the depot and working with fellow classmates has been really valuable for a variety of individuals. And, you know, this was a disappointing thing, I think, for both administration and the board to hear was coming forward. I also have my oldest child went through all 3 Cisco systems, had just a tremendously wonderful experience. And Chris Pechtel, the teacher formerly, was just a wonderful unicorn that we were lucky to have, and we're finding he's literally irreplaceable, which is really rough, but we're hoping to shape something new for students that still fulfills a lot of those same categories. And it's just been unfortunate to not find someone this year. So I'm sure Ms. Merritt has listened to your comments about the depot, and perhaps maybe we'll talk with Principal Tobias about what options might be there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Question? The contract might be a way of doing that.
Yeah, I think if he could reach out to Dr. Ben Morden, we would be able to find something to help him out. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, Logan, so Ben Morden is our head of the CTC Center. So perhaps if you could shoot him an email about some of your desires, and people can start looking to work on that. Any other comments from board members? Laurel?
Yeah, I mean, we all had talked about how upset we were that we couldn't get someone, but it just occurred to me, because of the small number, could it be possible, and this may have been what you were suggesting actually just now, that it could be even just like a couple hours a week? We do have some for some languages. I know we've had just very small contracts, just really aimed at those kids, almost like on a one-on-one.
Like an independent contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we would look to do, something like that if we could.
If we could, I think, yeah. But thank you for giving us your comments. It's good to hear how important it's been to you, and none of us were happy about this at all.
Yeah.
We really have tried. In fact,
Right.
we'd expanded the program because it was so good.
Yeah. Okay. Any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Sadly, yes.
Dr. Buck.
Yes.
Dr. Trevor.
Yes.
Dr. Duffy.
Yes.
Ms. Huff. Yes. Ms. Zidney.
Yes.
Okay, that is passed. Next, we have a motion to approve agreement with Standing Stone Consulting, Inc., as shown in attachment 6F. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
How about a second?
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion on this item? Mr. Buck.
Yeah, I'm wondering about and if we don't have the answer to this now, I would really appreciate a follow-up, and maybe other board members would need to weigh in to say, yes, we would like a report on this. Given the amount of attention that we've had to social and emotional learning, to the roles of the SRO themselves, et cetera, I really, part of me doesn't want to vote for this because I don't understand really what the training is for these individuals. Given that we have 12 people, right? In order to ensure that they would be in alignment with the kind of training that we would expect with a school resource officer or anyone who would have this kind of authority. And since I just don't know what it is, I would like to know what it is. If you can't answer that question now, I totally understand, but it would be nice.
Yeah, so this company works closely with our current SRO, and they go to similar trainings that our SRO, there's requirements to even have a security form within the school district that they have to go through specific trainings in order for them to even be a part of the school district. Correct. So, and I can get you a more detailed list of what trainings that they have undergone, but it's quite extensive, and they get a training before they even are allowed to participate as a security
Yeah, it says
guard.
that they're I can't remember which section is offhand, but that there is a section with work with folks in the district. Where is that? Service provider, supervisory personnel, and at the appropriate district personnel will meet periodically at the district's discretion to review their performance. So does that include things like emphasis on de-escalation, et cetera, et cetera?
So that would be more, how are you doing? Are you making mistakes? Are there things that you can improve upon? We like what you're doing in this area. Now let's transfer it into another area as well. These individuals do go through, as Mr. Johnson mentioned, a lot of the same trainings that our SRO goes through, but our SRO also, on a daily basis, works with them, or on a regular basis, not necessarily daily basis, but especially the ones that are located at the high school, making sure that there are things that they can do to improve and meet the needs, as well as our principal staff. They work with them as well. The middle school will have, at this point, one at each building. Last year they had two for a period of time. And what we've done, what we've requested is that the individuals that are going to be assigned at the beginning of the school year will go through an in-service type training with our SRO, with our two in-house security personnel, as well as administration being involved in addition. So yes, there are techniques of de-escalation, but quite honestly, these folks are doing crowd control. They are not to discipline, they are not to engage with individual students. That's not their role. And they're also communicators. They have a system that their company uses to help them understand different activities that they monitor with student behavior, and as well as monitoring the different locations that they go to throughout the buildings. And the reason we come forward with this is because our administration believes that, high school administration specifically, but also the middle school now, believes that they need additional eyes and ears. We have other security measures in our building, and there's not a plethora of companies available. We have worked through many different issues with this company, and they've become very, very responsive to some of the questions and concerns that we have. One of the things that came out last year in talking with SCAE leadership was, why are they on their phones all the time? And it's because they're using the software on their phone, the app on their phone, to do their tracking that is required, and that our staff, including the SRO, has access to that information as well. So it's not that they're just playing solitaire, and why would someone need to know that? Well, they asked the question, and so we're explaining. And so we just, they have different methods for doing that. So I understand the question. It probably did not provide all of the answers that you're looking for, but I hope that at least gave a little bit more insight. And as Mr. Johnson said, we can provide you with some additional information. But right now, we need some more eyes and ears, and this is what we believe to be the most efficient, cost-effective manner. We have very little incidences of problems with the behaviors of these individuals, and we've been, monitoring that very closely as well. We do have, at the high school, we have 2 other individuals that we call our in-house security, that they have other roles and responsibilities different than the crowd management that these folks have.
May I ask one other question? So at what point, or is there any point at which these individuals would intervene in some kind of an incident?
I don't know specifically what direction has been given.
Yeah, there is to cry fire, not to interact, but unless there's obviously danger of a student getting harmed, not to intervene, but to notify administration or the SRO of situations that need their further assistance. But if there is harm, they are able to intervene.
So if there is a physical conflict, they are allowed to intervene. If there's not, what about a escalating, like, verbal exchange?
They
like
can
harassment or something
they
like
can
that.
use their de-escalation techniques to, asking one to remove, get in the way, to
And
calm
get
them
help.
down, and to get help. They're usually in pairs to offer that type of assistance where they can help in de-escalating and also help in finding another person or administrator. They also have the cells to notify any administrator to call them.
The walkie-talkies.
And walkie-talkies.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure, Carly?
Yeah, thanks for the update on that and why it was needed, because that was my question when I read this. I'm thinking, is this needed? Like some of the other things that we approve, teachers and everything else. I wasn't sure why it was decided that we needed, and I don't know how it was decided how many we need.
Based upon our SRO and administration's recommendation. There is large group spaces throughout the school. There's also large, there's times when there's large numbers of students during class change that need to be monitored, and so these individuals are located in specific high traffic areas to help with crowd management and just being a visible presence.
Randy, maybe it would help the new board members to know, I think since I've been on the board, we've had outside security assistance at the high school. It was a different organization before. We've had Standing Stone for maybe, this will be the 3rd or 4th year?
Fourth, yes,
Fourth?
I think 4th.
And previous it was someone else. So, and I don't even know how it goes back before I've been on the board. So this is my 7th year of finishing. So we've had security individuals. Mr. Johnson, how long would you say? More than a decade?
Yes. We had it as long as we have been part of the renovation. Okay, that's when it started, because we had a number of doors that were open and students were crossing constantly, and we just didn't have enough people. We couldn't lock them, so we had to man them with security. So that's where it initially began. So that was, we went through that renovation 4 years ago, and we were in renovation for another 3 to 4 years. So it's been close to a decade that we have had those, some type of security.
Okay.
Then we've been increasing it.
Yes, because of the amount of students in any particular area.
The density is kind of higher in the new building?
It's really, instead of having 2 cafeterias where we would have 300 students in each of them, we now have 600. And so for crowd control and just seeing what's going on and managing and having eyes on kids, they're deterrents. Just to have an adult outside, we have a courtyard as well. There's just a lot of nooks and crannies in the high school. We want to grant our students the freedom of going to various different places, the hub, the counseling office, music wing, LD Art Smart. There's just a lot of number of places, and it just helps with when we have adults in those areas to, eliminate or alleviate misbehaviors that might occur without an adult.
These individuals also help with traffic management at the beginning and end of the day as well, outside the building.
Yes, they help direct traffic in multiple locations and bus as well. Dismissal.
So Dan has a question as well. Dan?
Yeah, Dr. David, I just want to just reinforce Mr. Johnson's comments that there was a time prior to the introduction of the construction process where we just had 2 security employees. One was assigned to the north building, one was assigned to the south building. And they worked collaboratively with the administration. These individual security individuals worked with the administration. They worked with the school resource officer, and they would team that way around the needs of students. And what has changed has been, one, the design and the size of the school. There are more, as Mr. Johnson's suggesting, there are places where kids can gravitate, where we have fewer resources to be able to observe the students, where in the old design of the school, the classrooms were right where the kids would have been. So all a teacher would need to do is look out in the hall and look left and look right and be able to observe. And they also had video recording taking place as well. But there were ways in which, because of the design, there were adult staff, classroom teachers, among others, who were present, could be present. And the design of the school, which really has the instructional areas, the classrooms, cordoned off into one section, and then there are other activity areas, or more open-ended areas that are on other parts of the building. It's more difficult to arrive at that kind of oversight. Whether we need 12, I don't know. That's as Peter's saying, the scale of this, is it really need to be this much? And what are they doing in relation to the de-escalation? What other training are they receiving? We talked before, and I don't want to get into this in great detail, but we talked before about the role of the school resource officer and the fact that in some of the incidents we were talking about last year, we were trying to differentiate between the role of the school resource officer in representing juvenile justice as compared to the role of the administration and their reliance on the handbook in terms of guidance, in terms of behavioral expectations for kids. And I don't mean to conflate or confound the work of the security staff that we've hired, but I think those are important questions to ask, at least, and to have clarified. But we have 12. We used to have 2 people did this kind of work, 1 in each building, and now we have 14. We have 12 contractors, and we have 2 employees doing this kind of work. So I just offer some reflections on all this.
I think, when we look back at our strategic plan, some of our discussions are very closely tied to student discipline data and tracking that moving forward. And so I think we're going to have opportunities to revisit what our trends are there. I think that's a good opportunity to integrate discussions on our overall management of security and institution of restorative practices and the impact that has on our needs in our spaces.
Yeah, and I would also like to, it has a lot to do with our increased security measures that a lot of school districts are partaking in. For example, now that we have 2 entrances into the building, you need a security guard to check people, visitors in, and also walk them to their area that they're supposed to be in, and then bring them back, and so that they're not in the hallways with the kids without being escorted.
Or in a restroom or someplace
there's
they
just
shouldn't
these
be.
extra precautions. So that in itself takes up 4 security guards, 2 in the front and 2 in the back, because we have basically 2 entrances to the building. And then if you remember a few years ago, vaping became a very big thing, in that we needed people like monitoring what was going on in the hallways and in the bathrooms. So, there's these bathroom checks, and walking the hallways. And now Dan said pretty eloquently that the classrooms are not in the hallways like they used to be in the old buildings. They're back in pods. So teachers really would have to go into the hallway to actually monitor what's going down. And they're curved so that it doesn't seem like there's a lot of students in the hallway. Well, but there are, because you just can't see from one end to the other end. So there's just things that are aesthetically pleasing that the architects put in, but are
and we're site limitations too. It wasn't just what the architects wanted.
Yeah.
Right, well, there are reasons for that.
Correct.
In some instances, yeah.
And just the largeness of the high school. It's 3 floors just in the front, and then you have all the way in the back where you have the music and athletics. And it's just a lot of hallways, and then you have the cafeteria where you have 600 students eating lunch at any given time. So,
And the other consideration is that having I think to Peter's point, appropriate training is really important, and we've heard some about what that is and that there are specific efforts for that. But not having to require teachers to be out patrolling halls, during transitions gives them the opportunity to have conversations with students during those times, which we know is really key. Those side conversations before and after class can be really critical interactions between students and teachers. So just a side thought to consider. Yeah, Laura.
Thanks. Yeah, just a couple of things commenting on what's already been said, since I have been around for a while. The pods, part of the idea behind them originally, in case people are wondering, well, why'd you then do that if it's taking, because we've heard the downside of them, that the classrooms aren't on the hallway the way they used to be. But the upside was supposed to be that these form units that actually are more intimate. So that was the thing. We weren't just ignoring that possibility, just, wanted to mention that. And I think also back before we had these people, in addition to the employees, the 2 people that were mentioned, there were also parking monitors outside who checked on the people going in and out of the parking lot. And in fact, I had looked back, because I very much remember when we first started doing this. The first contract was August 2015, and it was actually worded as parking people. And then as we moved into the renovation, we got them in the buildings as well. And I've had sort of, I think, similar concerns. We've talked about the SROs, and we had checked their state laws that require them to do certain things, and we did talk about at the RAMP meeting specifically how much anti-bias training they get and that type of thing. And I think that when you've got people who are interacting that much with kids, especially in large crowds, I think ensuring that they have some of that is really very important. And, we've had a conversation really nationwide about when we use security, because we all want to be secure, and it's easy to just say, well, we need more security. But whether maybe we'd be better off trying to get another social worker or something like that to actually be there being the ones monitoring.
And that's why we've made changes at the middle level, right? Where we're not having 2 at each building in the middle level, because we've put other kinds of professionals in positions to hopefully deal with those kind of issues in a different format.
I hadn't even realized that we had these folks at the middle school, because originally they'd just been at the high school. So that had been one of my questions, was whether we'd been having them, but that got answered, so what I am wondering about just the financial basics, what we expect to spend, and whether we could have a sense of that. And I would like that information, but I actually would like to, and Peter, you're my go-to person on that, I would like to table this, or however the form would be, to move to do that, because I think there's more to discuss here.
So I'll answer your first question. I expect that it's going to be about $430,000 this year. That's assuming that we're fully staffed each and every day for 8 hours of our school days. However, past practice shows that these positions are very hard to staff. And even though we are expecting 10 at the high school every day, I don't expect 10 at the high school every day. But that's what they need. And that is an increasing number. And quite honestly, as you shared your financial record keeping with me today, I can explain that over the years, we have increased greatly in numbers of people, but also there was a high number of times when either company that we've used has not, or all three companies have not been able to secure enough staff. There were times when we wanted 8 at the high school, and some days they were barely lucky to get 5. And so obviously we're paying for hours used, not hours requested. So that can be a large variation in that amount. You can ask for all the information you want. Understand that school is starting, and if you don't have a contract, then how do I have a contractor show up on the first day of school? So if you table this item and don't take action, I can't guarantee that I'm going to have a contractor that's not guaranteed they're going to get paid when they send employees here.
This had never come up until this showed up on the agenda, so
I understand. It was an expired
it's
contract.
It's a 3-year
and it took
contract,
us,
and that's a long time to say, well, we hope it's working out. And
It wasn't a brand new endeavor or service, however, so I think that.
And I should have realized the contract was expiring, I just hadn't.
Yeah, this has been a number of years that we have been doing this. And I'm concerned if we table this because of the security issues associated with it.
Yeah, last year at the beginning of school.
Having visitors walk in the building without being escorted is a serious security issue.
So, may I?
Sure.
Okay, I would not support postponing the vote on this. I would not. It would be postpone the vote until such date as, or until such information, or until the next meeting. So just procedurally, that's how that would work.
Okay.
I would not support that at this time. I appreciate the responses to the questions. I think that for myself, just maybe if someone can make a memo about what the actual training is that they go through so that I can understand it. I don't want to hang up security at the school. That seems like a really pretty stupid idea. But given the sorts of attention that we've had, and I think Dr. Bader said really well, the sort of variety of things that we want to have in place that are in the strategic plan, et cetera, it would give me more peace of mind. If the rest of the board doesn't want that, then you don't have to give it to me. I understand that, but that would give me a little bit of peace of mind. And I know that we're dwelling on this thing that probably we didn't think we were going to dwell on very long. I opened the can of worms. I accept responsibility for it. Pardon.
So would I. I would have questions too.
Okay,
so
all right.
Could I also just remind you that they have a significant role in arrival at school and dismissal with crosswalks and buses and all of the cars that leave the parking lot pretty much within the same 10, 15-minute time span. They also escort students maybe who are in crisis and need help, allowing the teachers not to have to leave the classroom unattended to be able to escort students out of the room. And that's, a really important consideration as well.
Oh, so they're like taking students down to nursing or counseling if they're needing an escort.
If a teacher needs help and there's a student who's very upset, they can assist with walking them down, or sick, or you fill in the blank. There are extra people to help with that, getting the student where they need to be.
Yeah, and I know when we have students on crutches and other things, sometimes they provide assistance at leaving the building, and certainly that O'Brien Weiss parking lot area really needs their concerted effort at traffic and pedestrian walking. Okay. Yeah, Laurel?
Yeah, I understand all that, and I'm not disputing that we need people. I get that, and the traffic and things in the building too. What I'm asking about, and I guess the question is, as you described, Mr. Brown, sometimes we don't even get, they don't all necessarily, but if we were to decide, say we were to look at this and decide, you know what, we only need, 5 or something. We're not locked, is the contract itself for a particular number of people if they can provide them, or could we modify it and just decide?
Modify the numbers.
So we could do that as we move
I
on.
believe that the contract does state what we are requesting to start the year with, but we've had an excellent relationship with the company, and if we make any changes, all of our changes have been up until this year. We've actually told them the middle school is only going to have 1 in each building to start the school year. And we've also put them on notice that that may not be for the entire year. So yes, I do not have any problem, any doubt that we can modify our numbers down if necessary.
Laurel, in paragraph 3C, toward the bottom of that page, the district reserves the right to increase or decrease the number of officers at any district location.
Right. And I think that's because, for the reasons we've said, we are, I did mention possibly postponing it, but I do understand, and I appreciate we're getting awfully close. I think we really need to spend some time thinking, even as we start with this, of is this necessarily who we want? And then also, if it is, and I don't mean the company, please understand, I mean security versus contracting something else. And even with parking, I've seen the ads that the borough is still looking for parking guards, so I know it's not easy. But if we could, following up on what Peter suggested, get some feedback on what the training currently is, and then maybe be thinking about what other ways we might want to meet those needs that are important needs.
Ms. Zidney, with all due respect, we have been doing that. This is a large expenditure. There are these types of questions do happen. It's just that we didn't feel that weren't aware that those are the types of questions that you would have, so we're not prepared tonight. But these are questions that we ask each and every day. Whenever I went to the high school administration and asked them, do we need to renew? How many do you need for the next school year? How did last school year work out? These are the types of things that we work through. And we're trying to, increasing the number of social workers, as an example, would not decrease this number. It may change behavior, but it may change it to an extent in a year or two that we may be able to reduce. But there's still the fact that this is a large building, and we need to provide certain safety and security measures for all students and visitors.
Okay.
I guess I wasn't clear on what I was suggesting.
Any other questions from board members? Okay.
Reinforce what Randy just shared, what Mr. Johnson was saying earlier as well, which is that the environment which we live now in relation to security is just a very different culture than existed 10 or more years ago. Columbine was just the beginning of a range of events that have led us to realize how vulnerable our schools can be and the importance of having staffing to provide for a secure coming and going, particularly arriving individuals, and vetting them in terms of their need to be in the school, and assuring that we have a way to monitor our entrances. And those are all crucial activities at this point in time. And we had actually, the campus 10 or more years ago had 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 different entrances that kids came in into or out of, and as well as adults, pretty freely without much concern or attention to the risks involved. So things have really changed in that amount of time, since the time of 2 security officers to where we are now.
So do we have any public comment on Yes, you want to come up to the lectern and if you could just introduce yourself, you know the drill, where you live in the district.
Tina
And
Hennessy. I live in Ferguson Township in Park Forest. So thank you for this conversation. I think we're very supportive of the work you're doing to keep the kids safe. And so I appreciate that very much. And I agree with where the board has landed, that you shouldn't table this vote. And it's a really big part of how we run the school right now. That being said, I do think the point about differentiating the role of the SRO, how that factors into the way that we run our schools, and how does that intersect with the security force? I think those are good questions, and I've heard all of you kind of kick them around a little bit during this conversation, and I think it's really important. A couple of things I heard. One was that this is the most cost-effective and efficient way to do this. And I challenge you to figure out, is that the bar for us, or is it what's best? What's best for our students? I would say that I'd like to see us do what's cost-effective, but do what's best and create the culture that we want in our schools and for our students. I know that you're trying to do that. I'm not accusing anybody of not doing that. But that is really the bar that I think we should expect of ourselves. And there's something in here about the fact that school's going to start in a couple of weeks and we can't table this. We can't have the discussion we want to have. I think the strategic planning process is the place to have that discussion. And it should be comprehensively about the SRO, the security force, the role of counselors in helping to manage some of this. And what could the district look like? What could our schools look like 5 years from now if our investment were different than the type of investment we're talking about tonight? So I appreciate where you landed. I'm very supportive, but I also think that these questions are large and important and meaningful, and I hope that you'll take some time during the strategic planning process to address them. Thank you.
thanks. Any other public comment? Anyone in attendance on virtual here for a public comment? I don't see any hands raised. So I think we've covered everything. Last call. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Kreviker?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Zidney?
Abstain.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Are there certain parameters for abstain?
We've talked about abstentions from time to time in the past, and my personal view is that you should vote unless there's a clearly articulable reason why you need to abstain from a legal standpoint, or in the case of Mr. Duffy, for example, he's permitted to vote on a contract where his wife is a member of, or was a member of the bargaining unit. I believe she's retired now.
Correct.
But he chooses for appropriate reasons not to vote. That being said, there are cases, and again, I could resend the memorandum that I've sent from time to time in the past. There's really nothing we can do to force a member to vote on a subject where they don't wish to vote for whatever reason. So
Okay, thanks for
those are my
clarifying.
thoughts.
I could have stepped out of the room instead.
Next up, we have a motion to approve change to the 2022-2023 food services pricing, attachment 6G.
So moved.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion on this item?
Can I just say, I just wanted to say that I really love the idea of providing, I mean, the basic point of this, if I'm reading it correctly, is to provide free meals to those families that qualify for reduced price meals.
That's
So
correct.
instead of charging them a little bit, we can just provide free meals. And I just want to say that I appreciate the proposal, and I think it's a great idea. And I'm curious if we have an estimate of how many families we think might qualify, so if we have any kind of a cost estimate, but regardless, I'm supportive of it. I just think it's a great idea.
At this point, the estimated cost is around $13,000, if I remember correctly.
Great, thanks.
And if you mentioned, in the memo, there was some donations from giant food stores
Yep.
that were hoping to use that, as well as maybe obtain some other sponsors for this program.
That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, so for the public, unfortunately, the federal government did not approve an additional year of free lunches for all kids. And so we're back to the system of free and reduced lunch through an application process. But if we pass this item this evening, we will essentially put everyone that meets the benchmarks will be eligible to receive a free lunch. So we're really pleased with Megan Shaper's ideas and brainstorming to come up with a way to make sure that we can try and support those families as well. Any other questions or comment? Anybody? Jackie?
Deb already said it great, but just to double down and say thank you to everyone in the district who's been working on this. Even our legislators have also been working on it. Any way we can feed kids is a good thing, and it's not easy work. So thank you to everyone involved.
Absolutely. All right, well, is there any public comment on this item? All right, let's have a roll call vote on it.
Dr. Buck?
Absolutely, yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Enthusiastically, yes. All right, that item is passed. Next, we have a motion to approve the purchase of a district electrician van as shown in attachment 6H.
So moved.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? My understanding is essentially we tried to get a van and couldn't get a van and just kept not coming. And so we've made the decision to go with a used vehicle that we were able to locate.
Correct.
Okay. Any public comment on this item? Great. Then we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
That item is passed. Next, we have a motion to approve an agreement with Connectivity Communications, Inc. for Palo Alto Firewall equipment as shown in attachment 6I.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Are there questions or comments, discussion on this item? All right, any public comment? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Duffy? Dr. Duffy?
No sound. Oh, sorry, that was really loud.
Dan, you're muted.
I realize that. I'm not muted now. So, and my reply is yes.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore?
Yes.
All right, that item is passed. Agenda item 6J is a motion to approve an agreement with Affinity Connection. This is shown in attachment 6J.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. You could tell that the different people at the table results in a different dynamic. All right, that's been moved and seconded. Are there questions or discussion on this item?
This has been a question that's come up in years past in terms of our working relationship when the foundation was under the umbrella of our organization. That was separate, but it had to do with that the database of donors in terms of ownership of that of that information. Those who which a database group of potential donors that might be graduates of State High, that might have come from the alumni association, that we have wanted to be have sought reassurance would be retained and would stay in a sense within our reach, within our ownership. And I think that this accomplishes that. This basically is paying Affinity to oversee that, but while making it clear that this information belongs to us. And Randy, correct me if I'm wrong on this one. I'm trying to draw some lines between different experiences that I've had over the years in relation to our relationship with the foundation and the role of affinity and the meaning of that database that they've been maintaining.
Dr. Duffy, the intent of the administration bringing forward this proposal is so that should the foundation cease to operate, the district has full rights and ownership of the data. And the rationale for the website management services is that is the tool in which the donations, many of the donations are channeled through to, and since the district has retained the financial record keeping process for the foundation, we believe that we need to have access to that, and we want to ensure that that website is up and running as well. So you're absolutely right, Dr. Duffy, and it is an unusual circumstance in some respects, but we all know that I'm a fiscal conservative, and I believe that this is the best way to ensure the long-term success for the donation and information related to the foundation for the district.
Ms. Zinni?
Yes, I understand that, and we have had that concern all along about making sure that we have ownership of the data, even if we were to go to a different company, that database is ours. And I guess I do see the value in having that. That said, we started working with them to have this because we were ramping up for the foundation, and it was an integral part of that. And I guess I would ask that we consider, when we do get the update from the foundation, that maybe this be backed out of the amount that we then give them to run the foundation, since this is pretty integrally part of it, and it adds up to a fair amount during the course of a year.
I think that's a conversation for a different meeting and agenda.
Yeah, no, I just, I see the reason for doing it. I just wonder why we're paying for it.
So that we ensure.
Well, I'm sorry, why we're paying for it twice, in effect. In my view, we're paying for it here, and we're giving the foundation money to pay for it, in my view.
We've always paid for it this way. The district has always paid for it. So
Yeah, it's always been separate than the allotment.
Yeah, it's never been counted as part of their allotment that they've been given, just for the record.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well. Other questions from other board members? Any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Zinni?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecourt?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Okay, that item is passed. Next, agenda item 6K is a motion to approve an agreement with Aaron Campbell. This is shown in attachment 6K. This is still here, right? Or did we pull that? It's here, okay.
So moved.
That's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion on this item? Yes, Laurel.
I don't believe this came to CCL when we had talked about other things, and I'm not sure where it came from. We already have folks that we're contracting for these services, I thought, and so I'm curious if maybe we could learn a little more about what exactly this is, because we did go over various professional development and things like that in the committee.
So I have Saria online who can answer about equity.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, no, we actually do not currently. Some of the individuals, they're under the, Dr. Campbell is under the umbrella of professional development. Her area of expertise is culturally responsive social emotional learning, which is actually a key area in our strategic plan and a key area in our equity action plan that we're focusing on. Her aim is to work with a small cohort of teachers in helping them to gain a deeper understanding of culturally responsive social emotional learning and how it basically works along with our existing curriculum, which is second step in zones at the elementary level. So that is what we are looking to partner with Dr. Campbell on.
Dr. Chatter, our community, right? Is she newer at Penn State?
Yeah, she is This year, she's going into her second year at Penn State. So brand new faculty member. We're really excited to get her because actually CASEL, which is the group that supports basically all social emotional learning in many, many districts, is also looking to partner with her. So we're really excited to get her on board because this will really help us in our work toward becoming culturally responsive. So.
Yeah, that was my point, that she's, there's a new opportunity that we didn't really have in our community before. Yeah, definitely. Before she gets really busy.
Yeah, unfortunately, she's already really busy, but really excited to work with our teachers.
That's great. We always appreciate those positive, with our colleagues at the university. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Laura.
I'm just looking up, I thought I remember, Dr. Bird's contract is to work with students and faculty and all on culturally responsive consultation. So, I mean, I'm just saying that that was why I was thinking we already had talked about it.
I think Dr. Chatters was trying to answer your question.
Thank you.
So Dr. Bird does work directly with our students and our teachers, but from more of the perspective of providing like support services, social emotional services. So she works in small groups, especially with many of our BIPOC teachers to support them in that way, and also students. Dr. Campbell will be working directly with teachers, and Dr. Campbell's focus is supporting teachers with their instructional pedagogy as it relates to culturally responsive teaching and learning. So Dr. Bird, just to kind of give you a difference, Dr. Bird is from the counseling education department at Penn State and is basically providing support services, supportive in the way of social emotional support for students as well as faculty and staff. And Dr. Bird is actually professional development, so focus on supporting teachers in their pedagogical practices as it relates to culturally responsive teaching and learning.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we have any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Ms. Zinni?
No.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecourt?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy? Yes. Ms. Huff?
Okay, that item is passed. Next, agenda item 6L is a motion to approve a contract with Randy Brown, Finance and Operations Officer for the period 2022 to 2027. This is shown in attachment 6L.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? We appreciate Mr. Brown and the opportunity to extend our relationship for the next 5 years and 2 months. He's ignoring me.
3 days and 7 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
Tick,
not
tick,
a
tick.
clock counting down in his office.
58
That's a
seconds.
myth.
Any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecourt?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy? Yes. Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Zinni?
Yes.
All right, that item is passed. Agenda item 6M is a motion to approve a contract with Linda Pierce, Human Resources Director, for the period 2022 to 2027, as shown in attachment 6M.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. We also are very grateful to Ms. Pierce for extending her relationship with us for another 5 years, and we look forward to her stewardship of our human resources. I can never say human resources. Human Resources Department. Any questions or discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Crevecourt?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy? Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Zinni?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Okay, that item is passed. Agenda item 6N is a motion to approve a contract with Danielle Yoder, Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Education, for the period 2022 to 2027, as shown in attachment 6N.
So moved.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Any questions
Not fast enough.
or discussion?
No, 5 years, that's all. 5 years.
He's talking about his little track for her. So now we've got Ms. Yoder for 5 years, which we're also very enthusiastically excited to have as she further guides our elementary program to the excellent system that it is and can be. Any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Dr. Buck?
Yes.
Dr. Kravitzkor?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Huff? Yes. Ms. Sidney?
Yes.
Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
Dr. Baker?
Yes. Happy birthday, CJ, even though it's not your birthday. It's like a birthday present, right?
Wow.
I made her blush. Okay. I think we'll take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll resume with information discussion items, please.
Sure.
We are adjourned. everyone who adhered to the 5-minute break. I'm really impressed. Everyone is back at the table. Let's see if Jackie and Dan are sort of there. All right.
Welcome.
Let's wrap this up, gang.
All right.
Tina, are you ready? Cool. All right. I'm going to call the meeting back to order, and we're going to move on to information discussion. Up first, we have Park Forest roof repair update. Mr. Brown.
Because of the difficulties that we had in the spring, trying to fix some roof repairs, and then some extenuating circumstances, we thought that it would be beneficial to just let everyone know that Mr. Fisher and his team, along with our architects and engineers, have been working with Tremco. We worked to identify some additional deficiencies in the roof, and with the goal of getting those remediated this summer before the building is inhabited. And that work actually began in July, near the end of July, and is continuing. Quite honestly, may be completed or almost completed at this point in time, and unfortunately, Mr. Fisher was not able to join us tonight unexpectedly. But I'm here to say that before the students arrive, and I believe before faculty arrive next week, much of the remediation should be completed, and we should not have significant concerns for the multiple leaks that we've been experiencing. I also wanted to share with you that we have worked very diligently with our insurance provider as well as our engineers, pursuing the company that did the work about the situation that we had earlier in the spring. Some of that information that we thought we would have access to, we still don't have access to. We still believe, with all of the professionals that we've spoken to, that there was not danger to any of the individuals when we had those vapor issues. But we don't have the concrete evidence that we would like to have for that. But we wanted to just let everyone know that, and we'll make sure that Dr. Weiser has appropriate information to share with the faculty and staff as they come back at the beginning of the school year. So we're hoping that the roof now has been remediated to the best of our ability. It's a flat roof, it's aged, but we'll continue to monitor, and I really appreciate Mr. Fisher and his staff's attention to this to get us in what I believe to be the best position to start the school year that we could be.
Yeah, that's a good plan to try and catch everything before it goes bad. So, any questions from anybody? All right. Thanks, Randy. Next up, we have a strategic plan, comprehensive plan update. Mr. Johnson, Ms. Yoder, and Ms. Merritt are with us to go over this information.
So as you know, we've been through the review process, or going through the review process, and we just want to let you know how that's going. So, Chris?
Sure. So we won't spend a lot of time tonight. Since May, we have worked with a variety of stakeholders, met with different student groups, instructional groups, admin groups, stakeholders that were involved in from the community and parents. Worked through the strategic planning process with MOOC and performance factor, and then once that was finalized with the groups, began to move forward with the comprehensive plan that PDE requires, that also has us look at the Future Ready Index. And we really broke that down during CCL at the last meeting 2 weeks ago. So we have a couple more steps. The plan was posted after the last board meeting, which you know needs to be posted for 30 days. We have it posted on our website. We have our emails for any parents that wanted to, parents or community members that wanted to look and share suggestions. At our admin team and at CCL, there were some minor edits suggested. They have been updated and are posted, and we will continue to monitor that for the final approval, which is August 30th or 29th, the next board meeting on the 29th. We did share a little bit as far as just total invites on the team. We did reach out to over 80 representation for the full stakeholders group and had about 72 serve. So community members, little bit lower. We did have only 5 served. We had reached out to at least 15. CJ and I had actually been making phone calls just to try to get more of a commitment back then. But both plans, as we said, are aligned. The comprehensive plan really goes into the details of specific measurable goals that is outlined over the next 3 years. So we looked at the target goal that we hope to reach within the comprehensive plan that is measurable and specific, and then we backed it down for year 1. We want to hit this target year 2 and year 3, and they are in the comprehensive plan that we reviewed. Besides that, I will be honest, we haven't heard a lot of feedback from the community. We've taken everything that we have received, so it has been posted even at our community meetings when we tried to reach out and send different things. We haven't received a lot of information with suggestions of edits. So I guess I'm hoping that no news is good news, but we have worked through that. And we're here tonight just as a final update prior to the final board process. Upon approval by you on August 29th, we will submit the comprehensive plan to PDE on August 30th, or else late in the evening, August 29th, as it is due on August 30th to the state. Yep. Okay.
When I went to PDE just to look at what you were presenting, I couldn't see anything. Is it because I don't have access to it?
Yeah, so PDE really only gives access, like it is by invite for school administrators, and even school administrators, like I can't access what the superintendent, the chief school officer, so I have components that I can see, and then our principals have access to their schools. But the downloaded copy, even though it is not pretty, we do not like the way that it prints from PDE. It's just we place all of the information in there, and then they create that template that was shared. So, and that's the comprehensive plan that has those, but you can't get access to that. And like I said, PDE prints it out the way you have seen it.
Well, there was a part where if you wanted access, you have to call one of the administrators or check. And so I was checking down the road, and O'Donnell is still one of the administrators on to get access to. His name was part of that.
Yeah.
So I was just interested.
We're in the process of getting that changed. but
Okay.
It's a tedious process.
Just
And just so you know that once it's approved, then we will have our building administrators, principals, creating their own personalized comp plan addressing their specific needs within their building. And they will be sharing that information with you during your board visitations, and then using that to inform your visitation of the school, showing where they are meeting those needs. So just to make it a living, breathing document that we are moving towards. As I stated earlier, we have created some lofty goals in there, and it's going to take us a while to get to that point. So we're still recovering from the learning loss of our students due to the pandemic. But we are moving in the right direction, and hopefully with this path, we'll eventually get where we need to be and back to teaching and learning.
And we have shared that at our administrative retreat. We took an afternoon to share the plans, the school building plans, what they looked like, what would be required of them. They're very optimistic and excited, and we will be providing them a timeline of those meetings so that we can be all prepared at the same time for those late fall board visits that will provide an overview of how their goals are aligned to the specific goals in the district comprehensive plan. Great. That's helpful. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll, oh, sorry.
I wanted to thank Mr. Johnson for having put the links so that people could actually send things in, because that was something I specifically had asked for. So thank you very much for doing that. And I did want to say the ongoing concern I have, having looked at it again and again, is the goal in particular regarding achievement. and growing, that the past two plans said we want underperforming students to make more than, in effect, make more than year's growth because we want them to close the gap. And it said we want kids who are on or above level to make a year's growth. And this one says either or is okay. So I don't see in here how if a kid is already, say, at 110% or whatever, however you want to measure that, say they're above grade level, that they have to stay, that our expectation is that they continue to do the full year as opposed to them coming back, and that is a real concern of mine. I think it's a change.
Well, they still have a growth goal, right? I mean, so I'm not sure what a year looks like for that student, but they still have a growth goal that we expect them to achieve. So that's why the and there are some students that will not hit that proficiency, but may have grown a tremendous amount. And so we're looking at it two ways.
Yeah, I guess it can be challenging to be inclusive because there will be small categories of certain students who may not make a year's growth, no matter all our efforts. And then other instances where closing the gap, we most definitely need to make those changes.
Yeah. Right.
So sometimes by being inclusive, it makes it seem like we are less
yeah.
aggressive, or maybe, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah,
I think something else to help is not an excuse. So we are looking at student growth percentile in K to 5. We have different different benchmarks that are able to provide student growth percentile that we are monitoring through our TII if they are indeed making more than a year's growth. We've got to be doing that for any of our underperforming. We're also have different ways to look at proficiency, and even those students who are proficient or above the bench line, are they making that year's growth? That's one of the things that we can monitor. Once they hit the Keystone exams and the different assessments that the high school give, we don't have a lot of, there aren't those every year assessments that they can be really drilling down. Now they can in reading and math through PVOS, we can be looking at some things, but oftentimes it's a large jump. So it's difficult in those high school years to find a benchmark or a measurement that can be doing that. So that's another thing. I mean, we want all students on their Keystones to be proficient or above, but it's sometimes hard to track that year's growth, and then each subject is going to look a little bit differently once they're at the middle and high school level.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, I think that's it. Great, thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Our last information discussion item is policies 100 and policy 220. And Ms. Pierce has an update for us, I think. Ms. Linda, did you want to update us on, that's okay. I know you were working away over there. You're up. Oh, Title IX, the never-ending, ever-changing.
All right, sorry about that.
No worries.
So tonight we're going to talk about two policies that have been discussed with the Policy Development Committee. They suggested we bring them to the full board. The first, both of the policies, I'm sorry, both of the policies were reviewed by PSBA. You might remember, or if you weren't here at the time, I'm telling you new news. A few years ago, the board elected to have PSBA review all of our policies. They've been in the process of doing that. After they send them to us, then the board needs to review the changes PSBA recommended. This has not been a quick policy,
quick process.
Quick process, but we are still moving forward. So sometimes that's the important thing. The first policy we're going to look at is Policy 100, Strategic Plan. In this document, I included for you both our current policy, which is then followed by PSBA's suggested revisions, all of which are in bold. The only change that the Policy Development Committee wanted to make to the PSBA language is at the very end, and they changed the language that PSBA had, which I didn't keep, so of course I forget what it was. I think it was to report quarterly. But the Policy Development Committee suggested we include as requested by the board. That's why that language is in red.
That's right. We discussed, Jackie's welcome to fill in as well. I know remote is tricky. We had discussed essentially that while more frequency was ideal in a lot of ways, because we're looking at a K-12 system, we didn't really have data necessarily on all parts of the system at specific time periods. And so, so we were discussing that might just need to be a little bit flexible so that when we have significant volumes of data come in, we can actually have a meaningful discussion about that data. Did I get that right, Jackie? You're nodding. Anything you want to add?
Yes. No, I agree on all counts, yeah.
Thanks. So that was the big change. So this is a first read for the full board
This is
on
a
these,
first read, correct.
on these policies. So these, certainly if board members have something to share this evening, they're most welcome to. Certainly if you could send stuff by writing shortly after if you're not quite there this evening. I don't think we'll bring these necessarily back to policy unless we have significant input from board members tonight.
Agreed.
Or immediately post this meeting. Otherwise, it would come back for a second read and potential approval.
And even though there's a decent amount of new language here, it's not new to the district. This is in district practice.
Yeah, that's more codifying the process, I think. And as we've learned with the comprehensive plan, some of this has become more regimented through PDE. Yes, Peter.
So I guess two things, and one is a question about if a student does something like post something during school hours from a device, but let's say that they're not on campus. What does that mean? Because they're skipping school and they're like doing something or other and they're like, I don't know, screwing around at Weiss.
During school hours.
During school hours.
On
district
device. District device.
A personal device.
On a personal device.
Right? Personal device.
Yes. So like, where is the, I have to go.
I know, I was
email,
gonna
text
say,
messaging,
what are you reading?
or while on school property or at school functions.
Did you skip down to 220?
Yes.
Oh, I did. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry.
We'll get there.
This is my.
No worries. We all want to get
sorry.
done.
That's why I was a
I
little
was not reading directions or listening to them.
Well, that's fine. I mean, if there's no other questions
Obviously,
or comments
I'm very interested in one of these.
Right. If there's no other questions on strategic plan, we certainly can move on to
I think we need to get to 220.
It sounds like that.
I'm sorry.
I just want to clarify the PSBA proposal, and I don't think this, and maybe I missed it, and I apologize in advance if I did, but my understanding of it was that if you look at our old policy, our old strategic planning policy, it was based on this process we have followed in the past where we would construct our own strategic plan, regardless of the source of the assistance, whether it was new to you or some other consultant. But that really represented strategic planning. But I think in this new policy, what it just makes transparent and obvious is that there are a half dozen different areas of work involved with planning that are mandated by the state that we have to meet on a regular basis. And I think their policy just gives voice to that, just creates a structure around which we understand the timing of those activities. There's one that relates to special education, one that relates to gifted ed, there's one that relates to induction. And it just simply says, talks about explicitly what we should be doing. And I'm not sure if we've gotten to that part yet. Linda, I apologize if I'm stepping on your toes on this, but it just seems that that's the meaning of the proposed policy from the recommended policy from the SBA is to include and acknowledge those other planning requirements that for which we're responsible with PDE.
Yeah, I had just mentioned that, essentially that's codifying, our requirements from PDE. Yes, Laurel, you have one about 100 or?
100.
Okay, go for it. I'll check this time.
That's
I'm just
okay.
teasing you, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like a lot of the stuff in here because it seems to address some of the concerns I'd had with the one that we did pass regarding strategic plan with what we talked about with that. But my question is whether, so I guess it's kind of whether we'll be doing administrative regulations for these as well.
I'm not sure.
Is that the term we're using these days?
We occasionally, some policies need administrative regs. I don't know what they would be for this.
No, because whatever process that we implement would be presented to the board before undergoing that process.
Yeah, and if we were to hire a facilitator of some sort, there would be a
Yes.
contract that would need to be approved by the board in order to happen. Sorry.
Yes, and what the timeline and that process would look like.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, I was thinking about
I can't
things
speak
like,
to that until
I was just thinking about things like
years to come.
Yeah.
the makeup of stakeholders and that type of thing, but we won't be doing it for
The
a while,
problem
so
that we
can
have
talk
with
about it.
stakeholders is a substantial amount of time from people working and that sort of thing. So it's very hard to get the commitment. But if properly spaced, it's doable. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
We have a little time, a little breathing room until that has to happen again. Okay. And then I think we can move on to policy 220. Peter, what would you like to ask? Or you want to brief on it? Go ahead.
Let me do a
You should. A rundown.
This also, the changes you see here were also recommended by PSBA. You can see at the very beginning, they have their important note. There is a decent amount of information in this policy. There was in our current policy. They're not really making a whole lot of suggestions, but where did I have the current one? Oh, apparently I don't have the current one. Sorry about that. But again, the new words from PSBA are in bold. We do have an administrative regulation, and we have met with a couple administrators. We will have another discussion with administrators before we change that administrative regulation. PSBA has provided us with their suggested administrative regulation.
So there might be an opportunity when this comes back, we may have those ready, maybe, maybe not.
It depends how long you want to wait to have this back.
Okay. Fair enough. It's nice when they can come together.
True.
So Peter, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so my question regarded posting, and so the example that I started to use before being like, and thank you all for your patience and your good humor as I get sucked into this thing and I'm thinking about it and not paying attention to 100 because I'm like, oh, that's not a thing. My apologies, right?
It's only supposed to be items.
No, that I didn't have questions about that one. So if a student during hours, right, but does a post from off of school property, would that be covered by the policy, and would it be covered through a combination of what posting means, and then I believe it's number 7 under unprotected student expression, which does say violates written school district procedures on time, place, and manner for posting, except that because it's not explicit, I'm just wondering if that needs to be explicit, or like if something were to happen and then some kid does something and they get punished, and then there's a court case and they say, well, it's not actually in the policy, and then is it a substantive disruption and all that sort of stuff? Like, I'm just wondering
Could you,
if it
could you
needs to
go
be.
over, please, again,
Yeah.
what you're saying? Because the PSBA language under posting says, via use of school equipment. So if an email is sent
Right.
via the student's Chromebook, then this policy does apply. If the email is sent from their phone using something other than a SCSD email, then that email doesn't count. I mean, this policy doesn't apply to that email.
I think it could apply if it goes to a SCSD email account.
If it goes to one, yes, I'm sorry, yeah.
Sent from or received by, either
Right,
or.
maybe,
But if they just
maybe a
made-
text is a better example. A text from my personal phone to your personal phone would not be covered by this.
Or
policy.
or like an Instagram post.
But it also
Yeah.
depends on what kind of disruption it causes.
Right. Exactly. And so-
it
But
doesn't
that's where
matter
the-
if it's from a personal device, if you, for
Create it.
example, threaten to shoot
but-
up the school.
But that's where
That would
that's in the
substantive.
administrative regulation, isn't it?
That would be in our code of conduct or
Well,
a
yeah,
student
but I
handbook.
think it's also in the administrative regulation, if I remember correctly.
Well, it's in here as well. Threatens serious harm to the school
Oh,
or community.
there you go.
Encourages unlawful activity or interferes with another's rights. So it's there. I think you were getting into personal device, but during school hours, but I think this.
But geographically, they're not on the school's property.
I think that's less of an issue.
Yeah.
It's really the disruption. Once they're on a personal device, it's.
I think there are 5 or 6 different factors.
Yeah.
Where you're going down.
Right, yeah.
From school property or to school activity.
Yeah.
Using a district network.
Yeah.
Using a district device.
Yeah.
You know, all those types of things, depending upon whether you say yes or no on all of them, you may go in different directions.
Yeah.
And district email is part of the district system, regardless of where you're sending your email from.
I mean, if you send it to district email, regardless of where you're sending it from, is what you're saying?
Either or.
Yeah.
Either from or to or
Yeah.
both.
Yeah, this phrasing is more about that off-campus or after-hours posting still becomes an issue when it substantially interferes. That's when the time of day is called into, they're just highlighting that it doesn't matter whether it's during school hours or after school hours. If it substantially disrupts, then it's potentially
Or
a
interferes with
problem.
the rights of another person.
Yes. Yeah, that whole phrase.
Okay, right, so, and that thing, so if it does one of those two things, like the
It's
substantive
non-protected.
disruption, like I can totally get that, it's the interference maybe with someone's rights and it's done at like different time or place or something like that. But if it comes into the school and it messes it up or messes up an individual student or teachers, then it'll trigger it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool,
There
thank
are
you.
gray zones that we are not going to be
Yeah,
able to
yeah.
define because that's been litigated recently.
Okay, thank you.
And realize that it doesn't always lead to some kind of consequence or discipline.
Mhm.
It could be a mere conversation, restorative, it
Sure.
could be a number of different things. So that it doesn't always lend itself to being a disciplinary consequence type of problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions on this one? Okay. So we'll see these back at some point in the next, at the earliest in a month, I think. We usually wait a month.
In September.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to jump one thing. Before we get briefly into committee meeting reports and things like that, I just wanted to mention, because that's a lot of logistical interactions, that this is our last meeting at College Township, and the board will be returning to Panorama Village for the August 29th meeting and the future meeting schedule. So I want to take this opportunity to thank College Township for their amazing hospitality. The staff have been incredibly helpful. They've been flexible in accommodating our needs, allowing our staff to come in and get set up. And we're really grateful for your partnership and look forward to working with you on future endeavors. They really we couldn't be in our boardroom due to some classroom issues for anyone who isn't aware, and being able to come and be here on the same nights has been just wonderful adjustment to get us through this year. But we're also looking forward to being back in our space and back doing those things. So now we can get on to the nitty gritty of some board committee reports and meetings. Dan, is there anything critical from CCL that you want to add?
Well, the only piece that wasn't addressed in this evening's agenda, because there were several contracts that came forward and the strategic and comprehensive planning process were reviewed. There was a discussion of a development in the equity planning for the district in terms of the creation of an equity action plan involving 3 goals and a series of action steps. The 3 goals relate to establishing a culture of belonging that is welcoming, inclusive, affirming, and free of bias. A second goal that ensures that students' identities will not determine or set up expectations whereby their success in schools are somehow affected by embedding equity in the foundation of everything we do. And finally, having a goal through which we recruit, hire, and retain faculty staff that's culturally responsive and sustaining among the educators we employ. Among the subtopics that came out of that was a discussion about the need for the role of professional development, and that we need to be vigilant about that. And when it comes to turnover, for example, that we acknowledge that new employees need to be brought up to speed in terms of understanding of the equity process, and that there's a challenge in preparing new employees with the training required in equity. We discussed the fact that the district will continue to collaborate with the University Center for Education and Civil Rights through the equity audit process. And to the extent that if people want to go back and look at the items for that particular meeting, which was, I think, in the end of July, you can take a look at the actual equity action plan, which includes priorities, action steps, roles and responsibilities, and the system of monitoring. It's pretty detailed, and I would suggest it be worthy for a worthwhile effort for people to look at that. That summarizes the remaining portions of that particular meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. I think those minutes are on today's agenda, weren't they?
Yeah, the minutes are, yeah.
Yeah, if people want to.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is going to come to the full board at some point, yeah, or no?
It's not a board approval type.
Totally. Okay. I wasn't sure whether, yeah. Okay.
That'll be a working document as
we'll revisit as we go forward. Okay. That's fine too. Just double checking. Okay. So upcoming meetings, the schedule includes on August 10th, 2022, a joint Facilities and Grounds Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and that'll be at 11:45 a.m. at the North Building. 8:16 at the North Building. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, that's right, because we're going to be looking at some of the spaces over in the North Building that we're going to be addressing. Thanks. And then on August 16th, 2022, we'll have a Policy Development Committee meeting at 1:30 at Panorama Village. August 19th, a Communications Committee at 11 a.m. at Panorama. And then again, at the end of the month on August 30th, we'll have CCL at 10:30 at Panorama Village. So we also have some board reports to go through. Dan, you said you had a brief update from the intermediate unit.
A recent IU board meeting, which was the way in which the intermediate units are organized. They conduct their reorganization, their election of the board officers and so on. That occurs in July, where in school districts it occurs in December. So at our July IU board meeting, Mr. Jeffrey Wall was reelected to serve as president, and he is the board member who represents Penn's Valley Area School District. And Mr. Jeff Johnston was reelected to serve as vice president, and he represents Keystone Central. And we're also very fortunate to have reelected or renewed our contract with Dr. Scott Etter, who serves as our solicitor at the IU as well. The other pieces from that particular um, discussion in that particular meeting revolved around, among other things, an annual event that the IU has been responsible for and provides technical support for, which is the National Autism Conference, which has been around for 15 or 20 years. It's well regarded, brings in a lot of significant leadership and academic and also clinical leaders in autism from across the country. And the intermediate unit helps organize that and really conducts a particularly innovative approach to involving families. Families are invited to participate at the National Autism Conference alongside teachers and administrators, professionals, psychologists, social workers, and the intent, of course, is to empower families to sit side by side, be as informed as anybody else is about the needs of their children. And one of the ways they do that is by setting up this Children's Institute, which is essentially an activity program for the children of the families, through which they provide experiences for the kids that are enriching and that relate to their area of disability, but it also frees up the families to go to the conference sessions. So that really kind of covers both sides of the street in terms of the needs of a circumstance like that, which is not something you'd see in a typical professional conference. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, and this is one piece of a whole collection of activities and programs that are engaged in the intermediate unit, but one piece that sometimes goes, at least about which people may be less informed, is the area of adult basic education. Every year, the IU gets a grant, gets a combination state and federal grant to support educational programs for adult learners. They cover those who are interested in getting a GED, but among other, they also provide adult education for some of those involved in incarceration, who are involved either in Center County or in Clinton County or in Clearfield County, are in some kind of prison experience. And so the idea, of course, is to prepare them for their eventual discharge or their eventual release. And so among the activities of this adult educational program is the work with those in our different facilities in the 3 counties, which is a program about which we might not otherwise be all that aware. I thought I'd bring that up. And we're also, the last thing to mention is that, and as Dr. Endler, our executive director, frequently describes it, we may in fact be on the verge of having a new home. Among the decisions and action items for the board at the IU meeting was a set of different recommendations. One was to continuing a discussion and engaging in the draft of a formal agreement with an architect for work at a future administrative office location. And this was aligned with our working on developing some engineering proposals with which we could share with the owner of our property in which we're particularly interested. And Dr. Etter has been assisting us in developing an agreement of sale for that property. So things are really taking shape. That there have been a number of well-intentioned efforts in the past, but they haven't worked out. But this one seems to be the most likely of all to be able to result in our having a facility. It will be located within the boundaries of Clearfield County, but it would serve the schools and other programs that are part of the intermediate unit in all 3 counties, Center, Clearfield, and Clinton counties. That's essentially the summary I have to offer.
Okay. Except we have the State College Area School District Education Foundation liaison report, and that would be Amber's role, but she did share a few details that I'll convey to the rest of the group. She shared some by email. Recently, just a week or 2 ago, the foundation held a strategic planning event, and that went really positively. There was a lot of enthusiasm and excitement about making plans for their goals moving forward, so that was really positive. And they had that retreat at the Happy Valley Launch Box, which I heard was a really nice venue for a gathering. Wanted to let people know that the nominations for the Maroon and Gray class of 2023 are now open, and anyone can nominate anyone they think has contributed to the SCASD community or had significant professional accomplishments after graduating from State High. They're also planning another round of grants from the Marty Lowry McDonough 1987 grant program, and we'll be hearing more about that soon. Any SCASD employee in the grant program is eligible to apply for up to $2,500, and planning to open that portal will open in early September to apply for those grants. Since 2016, the foundation has awarded 80 grants worth almost $100,000 to teachers and staff in the district in this endeavor. So a few quick updates from the foundation. Carlene, do you have anything from CTC, Local Advisory Committee?
No, we haven't met yet.
Okay. And then we have some CAC, Citizens Advisory Committee reports. Athletics?
No.
Nope.
We haven't met yet.
Okay. Facilities, Peter, I think that got bumped, maybe. I don't think we have anything from finance. School health and safety, Dan, was there a meeting that you're aware of? I'm not sure that they've had one.
No, we typically, they'll be scheduled 3 a year, typically either early October and then late January and then April. So we have we completed those scheduled for the last year, but we still haven't heard the schedule for the new.
Great. Jackie, I'm guessing technology has not met either. I think not. Awesome. So looking to future agenda planning, August 29th is our next regular meeting, and again, that will be at Panorama Village. And action items may include Act 57 local tax collection, resolution, some north building renovation items, Mount Nittany Elementary renovations, amended transportation agreements, SPPA working group. We may have some information on their RFP for solar electricity, and other items.
The strategic plan.
Yes, strategic plan will also, the comp plan will be on there for approval. And with that, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor of adjourn, we're going to be adjourning to executive section. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, everyone. We're adjourned to exec session.